Hi, fifth graders. We're looking today at your um, lessons and kind of going back over the reading that you did yesterday called The Bully. And this is realistic fiction. You could picture this happening in a school someplace. But I want to go over your vocabulary words quickly. You had taunting. Taunting would be like that kind of teasing that somebody would do. Abruptly, very quickly. Something happens very quickly. It happens abruptly. Ally. An ally is a friend, and he needed a friend in this story. Conflict, something where you disagree or don't agree with one another. Intervene, to step in, to come between. Confident, if you're confident, you are sure about something. Collided, to crash together. Protective, just like it says, to protect, to shield, to help. All right. So to summarize, when we summarize, we want to include the most important details. You ask yourself, would I understand the story without the detail? If the answer is no, then the detail is important. That's a good question to ask yourself. Do I need that detail in order for it to be understood? So here's an example. I read that JT picks on kids in school, including Michael. The text then says that Michael just took it quietly and waited for the unpleasant moment to pass. These seem like important details, so I will use them in my summary. All right, so let's kind of go back and try and summarize this. Actually, I'm going to get the your turn part up here, and we're going to summarize the bully. Okay, so first of all, like she said, that JT is a school bully, and he bullies Michael. Oops, Michigan. Something my fingers automatically type. Michael in the hallway. Michael doesn't fight back. All right, that's the first thing she said. Now, when we go through here, looking at this picture on 397 here, we see, the author's going to give us pictures and illustrations to help us with our summary too, because usually they don't put a picture there if it doesn't have some importance. So this guy here, when we look at what he's doing, we'll move this over so we can see on this side now. Ramon helped Michael, again Michigan, pick up his books and gave him some advice. And the advice he gave him was what? He tells him that his grandma said you can catch more flies with honey than vinegar, which means if you are nice to someone, it will be better than if you are mean or sour towards them. Okay, so then what happens? JT trips in the hall, and Michael helps him pick up, his books. And we see that he has used that advice of his friend. So if we look back, JT is a school bully and he bullies Michael in the hallway. Michael doesn't fight back. Ramon helped Michael pick up his books and gave him some advice. You can catch more flies with honey than vinegar, which means if you are nice to someone, it will be better than if you are mean and sour towards them. JT trips in the hall, and Michael helps him pick up his books. And finally, Ramon what would we say? Approves of what Michael did. And they end it in kind of a comical note. I hope it sticks. Just like honey, I hope it sticks. So that's kind of how we summarize it, going through, getting those little important details out, and coming up with what the story is about. Okay? Kind of going with that, we look for a theme. What is the message or truth about life that the author's trying to get us to understand? JT, we look at what the character does and what happens to the character to help us to come up with that. JT orders Michael to show him his school books. JT causes Michael's books to fall to the floor. Michael nervously holds out his books. Michael shows frustration by kicking his own books. Okay, so we see he's frustrated with this bully, like anybody would be in his situation. But we want us to come up with a theme. Okay, so what's the theme here? He's frustrated with this bully, and the friend comes along and gives him the advice, and he follows the advice. So the theme, being nice to others is better than being mean. And then also we could say that this is another point that helps us to understand the theme. Okay, so he's frustrated because he feels alone and this bully is bullying him. Being nice to others is better than being mean. But let's be more specific. What is the author really trying to get across to us in life? What is it that he wants us to understand? So when we think about getting to the end, Ramon is a key part of this. If Ramon didn't step in and help, or didn't give him advice, we would never come up with the good ending here. Okay, so we would say, as far as the theme, that be a friend and help others in need. Be a friend and help others in need. Even if the person's a bully, if we're nice to them, it's going to help the bullying stop. Okay, to be nice. And that advice helped. So to find a theme, again, we look at what the character doesn't say and what happens to the character, and that helps to get to the theme. All right, realistic fiction. It's realistic because it's set in places and times that could actually exist. So it's set in a classroom, in passing in the hallways, and that could happen today. Has characters and events like those found in real life, right? That's what we see. Real life bullies, that could be a real life situation. Includes descriptive details and appropriate pacing. Descriptive details about what's going on. Appropriate pacing. Both of these things here are text evidence or text features that we have. Descriptive details tells you more about those characters. Pacing, it's the rate that they create effects or suspense or excitement. And so pacing, starting off at the beginning, he's coming down the hallway. It's it's kind of that, drawing you in. And then he knocks over the books. And then it's the right pacing because we get the friend, Ramon, or the person who says it looks like you can use an ally. He comes out, he helps. Then going on to the next day when the bully's coming down the hallway again and how he responds. It creates an effect of suspense, excitement, what's going to happen. And that's what we call the pacing. All right, then we have, and it says list 3 other details in the bully that indicates how the characters, problems, and the story events are similar to those found in real life. Okay, characters. There are bullies in schools just like JT. That's the problems and characters. They're basketball players and people that are more athletic. Stories, events, the fact that sometimes people pick on other people. Those are all real life situations. Going to school, carrying your books down the hallway. All those are realistic situations. Connotation and denotation. We talked about this in poetry. Denotation, dictionary meaning. Exactly what it says. So if it's a dictionary meaning of something. If I'm looking at the word tremble, tremble means to shake. So the denotation is to shake. The same word has a connotation, a feeling that it suggests. If I said that he saw JT coming down the hallway and he started to tremble, well, he started to shake, but it also has a connotation that he's afraid. The tremble doesn't just mean that he's shaking, but it also means that it suggests that he's afraid. Okay? If somebody barked at you, to blurt something out loudly, but what also does that give you? A positive or a negative? If somebody barked at me, it's a negative feeling towards it. It gives a different feeling. The feeling is the connotation. Okay? So the denotation's the definition we find in the dictionary. The connotation is that feeling that we would get. A positive feeling or a negative feeling or some emotion that it brings out. Okay? That's connotation, denotation. I want to look at your workbook pages with you briefly, and then you'll be able to go ahead and work on all your things here. Okay, so in your turn booklet, in your workbook, I'll bring the your turn book up here. Okay, I'm going to jump to maybe 265. Let's see if it's close. It's close. That's what you already did. Okay. So let's go into here. 261 was what you did for your vocabulary. The Battle of the Bedroom. So you're going to read about the Battle of the Bedroom. Okay. And then, what problem does sharing a bedroom create for Marta and Lucia? What problem does sharing a bedroom create for Marta and Lucia? So what's the problem? Why is it not good to share the bedroom? What's going on there? Why do the girls' parents give them each a notebook and pen? What's the purpose for the notebook and pen? Why did they do that? What happens when the sisters discuss their ideas with each other? So be a little bit specific. What happens with the relationship? What happens between them? And what is the theme of this passage? So when you try and figure out the theme, think about the title, think about what's going on. What life lesson do you think the author is trying to get across to you? And it's not specifically about sharing a bedroom. So what do you think the author's trying to share with you or get across to you in the theme? When you look at paying it forward, Okay, you're going to read this little couple paragraphs there. Name a detail that lets you know this text is realistic fiction. How does it do that? So you might say something about, instead of saying something like, oh, it's the person is realistic. Okay, well, this detail happened, and that's realistic because, so this happened and it's realistic because. Write an example of a descriptive detail from the text. How does that detail add to the text setting, characters, or events? All right, a descriptive detail. So as we're looking at that, what they mean by that descriptive detail is, well, it's more like when you're reading through, there's many descriptive details. Something that gives you, that tells you some specifics. Okay? So something that tells you specifics. And write it from the book, from the paragraph up here. Okay? When you read it, write it verbatim, word for word. And then tell me how it adds to it. It helps me to know this. Or it helps to see this about this thing, okay? And then third, how does the author use pacing in this text? So pacing, remember, it's the rate at which something is done so that it brings suspense or brings excitement. How does the author do that? What does the author do here that brings out the pace? What is he saying? And then how does the pace help make it seem realistic? What about it? What about that pacing that makes it seem realistic? If he was going real slow and it took days or it was something where the reaction wasn't the same, that's not the right pacing for this story paying it forward. All right, so think about the pacing, and then how does it make it realistic? Okay, those are the 2 pages that you need to do, and I hope all things go well with that, and I will talk to you tomorrow about your, or actually Thursday, about your main story that you have to read. Okay, have a good Tuesday.